I am very excited to be sharing my pretty extensive thoughts on the new VENN reeds by D'Addario. My name is Josh Gu, and after years of studying the clarinet with some of the best teachers from around the world, I am excited to be sharing my knowledge with you. So go to QuickStartClarinet.com or check the description on this video to see all of the wonderful resources I have to help you reach your clarinet dreams. And of course, subscribe to this channel for weekly clarinet and music tips and tricks. Before we get into the review, though, I have something very exciting that I need to tell you about, and that is that I am doing a live training on June 25th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. It's going to be a training called Fixing Your Clarinet Problems. After teaching for about 10 years now, I've noticed some sort of regular issues coming up in student after student, and because I've been teaching so long now, I've come up with quite a lot of solutions to those, a lot of solutions that I learned from my teachers when I had these problems, because they really are almost seemingly universal problems. So I'm going to be addressing, first of all, what they are, and giving you some exercises for how to fix them. So if that sounds interesting, if you have some clarinet problems that you would like fixed, then go to quickstartclarinet.com/solutions and register for that free training on June 25th. There's also going to be a very long Q&A session that I have planned where you can bring your own clarinet problems and I'll give you some solutions, almost maybe even like a very, very mini lesson to hopefully get you on the right track and get you headed in the right direction on some of your most challenging clarinet issues. So go to quickstartclarinet.com/solutions. The link is also in the description to register for that. Even if you're watching this video after June 25th, you can still go to that same link and I will have the training replay up there as well. So check that out if you're interested. And now let's get into the review. So of course, the thing that you are most interested in and should be one of the top priorities when trying out a new kind of reed is just how does it sound? So before I get into talking about what the VENN reeds are, what my thoughts were and my experiences with them, I want to just do a quick side-by-side playing test. And I am actually going to do it as a blind test. So I'm not going to say which reed I'm playing on. I'm going to do a side-by-side of a couple different things, sort of testing it out. And I'm doing it blind for the same reasons why I don't want to tell you any of my thoughts about it yet, so that you aren't taking any preconceived notions and you're just purely judging the sound quality of each reed. I also want to mention before you actually hear them side by side is this wasn't just, I tried one random one out of the box to see. I got 5 different reeds from D'Addario, strengths 2.5 to 4. I tried them on different mouthpieces, different days, and I played on them for about a month. So I really had time to get used to it and adjust my playing to what the reeds wanted. So this is about as fair of a side-by-side as you can possibly get. So without further ado, let's give them a listen and see what you think. All right, so that's how they sound. I should also note that in both recordings, I hadn't practiced the little excerpt of the Copland Concerto much at all. And I kind of did that intentionally, first of all, because when I was recording it on the cane reed about a month ago, I didn't have time to practice before I could record it. And then over that month, I intentionally didn't practice it so that there was no difference in my sort of comfort with the music. So it was hopefully more or less just the reed differences that you were hearing in the playing. An interesting note about that, though, is maybe you noticed that one reed I had more musical contrast or more musical interest than the other. And that wasn't because of musical interpretation decisions. It's not that I studied it more and decided I wanted to do things differently. I think a lot of it comes down to what I was able to do on the individual reeds, whether you thought one reed was better than the other on that kind of stuff or not. All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about is actually what the VENN reeds are. So this is a synthetic reed made by D'Addario. It's been in the work for about 10 years now, quite a long time that they've been wanting to develop a synthetic reed and bring it to the market. Another really important thing about these reeds is this is actually sort of the second version of them. So you may have tried the VENN before, but you want to look at your box for this new design sticker on it. So this is the sort of second iteration of the VENN reeds. I learned that during the pandemic they had some manufacturing issues and they've changed the polymer, I believe it is, that they're using. So that's the difference between them. The newer version is actually better in general. You can also tell by looking at the reeds too, where this is what a new one, the second version, looks like. It's a little bit lighter than the original ones. The words on it are also a little bit lighter. So that's what you can tell the difference. If you have one that's getting very fibery or seems like it's shedding, that's probably one of the original version ones. I had no problems with shedding over the month that I was using the second version of the VENN reeds. So what they are, they're synthetic. They are really cool because, as you could tell when I was showing it, it looks like a cane reed, especially from this distance. If I move it around a little, you can't really tell that it's a synthetic reed just by looking at it. And right now, even looking through it with the light, it looks very, very similar to a traditional cane reed, which is awesome. And that's because they use actual cane particles in it, but it's polymer fibers, and then there's synthetic resin that is on it. So it's all truly a synthetic reed with sort of the dust from their manufacturing of their cane reeds sort of ingrained into that and made part of it. The other thing that's really, really cool about these is I believe some other synthetic reeds do it by a mold where they sort of take the synthetic material and then they press it into a mold to get the reed. The way that D'Addario is doing this is they take the polymers and actually put the polymer fibers together with the cane dust and turn it into tubes and then process it on their standard reed processing equipment, which is very high tech and very advanced at D'Addario. So it's really very similar to a cane reed, and the manufacturing, the actual material itself, is all just about as close to real cane as you can get. So that's what the reed's all about. Now let's get into how I actually felt playing on them. So first, before that, actually, I want to talk about what makes a good reed. So the big qualities of a reed to me, and this is actually would be helpful whether you're experimenting with synthetic reeds or just looking for a good reed out of your box of cane reeds. The things that we're looking for is that it's easy to play, it's easy to sort of get what you want out of it, it's consistent. So this mainly I mean consistency from day to day or session to session. Cane reeds are notorious for being very inconsistent, which is why synthetic can be so appealing, because when the weather changes, things like that, it can completely change your reeds. Sound quality, you want a reed that's going to sound good, of course. Flexible dynamics, that's kind of ties into sound quality and maybe consistency a little bit, but if the dynamics are all over the place, or it's really hard to play soft or really hard to play loud, then that's really going to hold you back. And then the last one that I'm thinking about is responsiveness in articulation. If you have a reed that doesn't articulate well, then it's not just going to be hard if you have to articulate a lot in a piece, but every single note that you start is going to be hard, and the responsiveness will affect sort of the big intervals and things like that as well. So those are the 5 big things that you want to be looking for in any reed. Now I want to talk about my experience with those things in the VENN reeds in particular. So I'm going to organize this in sort of what I thought was really good in the VENN towards the things that I thought were less good in my experience. So the first best thing out of those 5 is the response and articulation was really, really great. I think that was the one thing that was pretty consistently better on the VENN reeds than my cane reeds, is that the articulation was very easy. Throughout all registers, the articulation was pretty easy. The big leaps were very, very responsive. I could leap into the altissimo with no fear, and it was just very easy to get those notes to come out. So that was really, really great. The second sort of best thing, and this kind of ties into it, is the consistency. And of course, because it's a synthetic reed, it should have better consistency than a cane reed. And I found from playing these, like day to day, they were very, very, very similar. Now, I did have some consistency issues as I was playing them, which was very interesting. I would find that when I first started playing on it, it seemed pretty good. It was like, okay, this is a reed, I'm making a sound, this is nice. As I started to try to do more nuanced stuff, whether that be dynamic things or changing registers, I found sometimes not doing big leaps, that worked fine, but it was hard to get a really even sound from like the low notes through the high notes. Sometimes the high notes worked better on some reeds, sometimes the low notes worked better on other reeds. It really felt like it was a strength issue, kind of, but not exactly as you would expect. And that's kind of why the title of this video is Forget Everything That You Know About Reeds, because it functioned like you would expect from a reed, but in like a slightly weird way. I can't quite put my finger on it, but you would expect a reed that's harder to work better on the high notes and be a little bit fuzzy in the low notes, and a reed that's too soft to sound better on the low notes and not quite as well and not hold up as well on the high notes. And that was true, but not like exactly in the proportion that you would expect. And I didn't feel like I ever found a right reed mouthpiece combination that was like that sweet spot where the low notes sounded good and the high notes sounded good. So there was some range consistency issues there. The other thing, as I started doing more of those nuanced things, it wouldn't work. But then after like 30 to 45 minutes of playing on them and like really getting warmed up to it, things would start working and I would feel pretty good about where it was. Now, you would expect that this is just like, okay, I'm not used to playing on these reeds and I just need to take time to find how it feels. But again, I played on them for like a month, and nearly every single time, no matter the reed mouthpiece combination, I had a very similar experience to that, where I didn't feel like I was optimally playing on them until like 30 to 45 minutes of playing on them and really, really getting warmed up to it. And it didn't, that time didn't really reduce over the month that I was playing on it. It was sort of from day one all the way until I stopped playing on them. It felt like it took that while to warm up. So the consistency day to day, very good. The consistency through the ranges and through the practice session of playing on it was a little bit more unpredictable. Now, the next thing that it did quite well was the sound quality, actually. And it sounds good, and hopefully you can hear from the playing demonstration that between the cane reeds and the synthetic reed, you maybe have an inkling for which one is right. You'll have to wait till the end of the video to know if you were right about which is the synthetic and which is the cane reed. But the sound quality was definitely comparable, and I feel like out of all the synthetic reeds I've tried, I think these probably have the most potential to be the most similar to cane reed sound quality. The problem, though, is it was a little bit hard to get that sound quality. Like, it was not consistent what that sound quality was going to be. So sometimes I could make it sound really good, and if I worked really, really hard, I could get it to sound just as good as a cane reed, but it took some work. Now getting into the things that I wasn't so happy about, the dynamics. Yes, I could do different dynamics and different volumes especially, but getting different color changes and like those timbre changes that you want for different characters was a little bit challenging. I found when I would go for one of those timbre changes, it would just like trash the sound quality. So there was like really only one sweet spot where I could play with good sound quality, and I could change the volume there, but I couldn't change the color or change the character as much as I might like. So that was definitely one drawback on the dynamic side of things. And again, it felt like it was one of those weird strength of the reed things where I didn't have quite the right strength, or I suspect, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, like I feel like the cut is just not quite right. I think the material is good, but I think maybe more experimenting with the cut might do the trick to make these reeds really, really, really great. But for right now, it felt like the hard reeds I could get dynamic contrast from, and they held up a little bit, but the soft reeds, like the sound quality would go really quickly. So it was really hard to have the flexibility of dynamics and sound quality and color that I really want to make the most expressive playing. And last but not least was the easiness to play. As you can sort of tell from some of the little anecdotes I've told so far, is that they're not very easy to play. They're a little bit unpredictable at times. It's again a little bit weird. It feels like I can't quite put my finger on like how to get these things to work out. And I don't think it's just because it's a synthetic reed. I think there's, again, maybe the cut or something else is at play there to make it a little bit unpredictable. And the other big factor on general ease of playing was that they felt really, really hard. I normally play on my Ramon Wadkowski mouthpiece, I play the D'Addario Evolution Strength 4. The 4 was very hard to play, and it was a little bit weird. At first I thought the 4 was too soft, but it was actually much too hard, and the softer ones felt better. So again, another weird thing where the reed was playing with my mind a little bit, not responding predictably how I would expect from a cane reed that I'm used to working with. So I ended up playing, and the recording was on a 3.5 plus, so just a quarter strength lower. But on that 3.5 plus, my embouchure would get tired so fast. I felt like I have to put so much embouchure pressure onto the reed. The other thing that was just like really weird and sort of forget everything you know about playing on reeds is on cane reeds, I'm constantly thinking this and constantly telling my students to use more air and less embouchure pressure. Let the air do the work and relax the embouchure. But on the VENN reeds, I felt like it was almost the opposite. Like the more embouchure pressure I put into it, the better. And actually, weirdly enough, it felt like a little bit less air pressure was the way to go, and relaxing the air a little bit gave me better sound quality results and better flexibility, which again, it seems very, very counterintuitive to me. But the general easiness of playing, again, because it was a little bit unpredictable to get a consistent quality of sound, and because it just hurt my lip so much to have to put so much embouchure pressure to make it work, really detracted from the easiness of playing. It wasn't easy. It was just hard work all the time. And again, it had potential. It sounded good. The responsiveness was there, but it was just so much work all the time. So those are my general thoughts on the playability. I just want to throw in some other miscellaneous things that I think would be useful to know if you're going to try out these reeds. First, as I already mentioned, go softer than you think. So I normally play on 4s. 3.5 plus is what worked for me. I would even go a half strength or even lower. The 3.5 on that mouthpiece was like close, but the interesting thing about these reeds with the strength is there's definitely the strengths relate to each other in the way that you would expect. Like a softer reed sounds like a softer reed. However, in the way that you wouldn't expect, it doesn't totally feel like a softer reed. Yes, it's a little bit less work, but it's still like quite a bit of work always. Even when I was playing a 3 on the mouthpiece that I would normally play 4s on, it sounded like a too soft of a reed, but I was still having to like work quite a bit here. So I think for me, I was willing to like sacrifice my lip to get the consistency and sound quality of the 3.5 Plus. I think if you're playing on a 4, maybe even 3.5 would be the way to go, because they are quite hard and again, take a lot of work from there. Now, I mentioned that I think the cut of the reeds, there might be something weird there. I did experiment with adjusting them, and they definitely are adjustable. A knife or even a Reed Geek might not work so well because the surface is so slick, it doesn't get that good catch with the knife as you do on cane reeds. But some like 600 grit sandpaper or whatever sandpaper you use for cane reeds worked really, really well. I experimented with sanding the back. I sanded some specific spots on the actual reed itself, and I did have some success with the adjusting of the reeds, and they adjusted pretty similar to how you would expect a cane reed to adjust, where taking material off in certain places had similar results to what you would get from a cane reed. So definitely they are adjustable. One interesting thing with adjusting, because they are synthetic, you get the dust, and I wonder if the synthetic material, the polymer dust, is okay to be breathing. It might be good to wear a mask or something when you're adjusting. Honestly, you probably should wear a mask or something when adjusting cane reeds as well, so I don't know if there's any actual real issue with that, but that was just something I was aware of, was like, man, should I be ingesting all of this polymer dust? It's probably fine, but just something that I was thinking about. I already mentioned this a little bit. I really like the way that they look just like cane reeds. I also really like the feel of them, actually. Like when you put it in your mouth or when it's on the mouthpiece, it doesn't feel quite so slippery or plasticky like some synthetic reeds, and maybe that's the actual cane particles in there, but it feels really good, just like a real reed in terms of the mouthfeel. Playing it doesn't feel great when you have to work so hard, but the mouthfeel is pretty nice, actually. And then the last thing is that they do last. Again, I mentioned the consistency day to day. After playing on, I think the 3.5 Plus was probably my most played reed out of them. I also did a Vocalese mouthpiece, the H, which is the most open, on the 3. I used that setup quite a bit as well, and I didn't notice any changes over the month of playing on them. So I'm not sure how long that they would last. I would have to do a more long-term test, but I feel confident that easily 3 months, likely 6 months. I've played on cane reeds that are a year old, so I'm sure the synthetic reed would hold up over a year, even better than the cane reeds. So I personally would have no problem with the longevity of these reeds. So my final thoughts: I really, really wanted to like these reeds. I really tried hard to get used to them, but right now it's just not totally working for me. A couple days ago I went back to my cane reeds and I was really excited to get back to the cane reeds, and have found that they're working better. I can get more dynamic contrast, more of the sound quality that I want more easily. Yes, they vary a lot more from reed to reed than the synthetic reeds, as you would expect, but I felt like I was messing around so much with like trying to adjust it, trying different mouthpieces, trying different positioning, different ligatures, having just the weird changes over the course of playing it. It was as much work and sort of inconsistency on the synthetic reed as I was having with my cane reeds. And since the cane reeds are easier to play on, and I do like the sound, or I like how easy it is to get the sound that I want on the cane reeds, then it's just better for me right now to be playing on the cane reeds. That being said, I really feel like there is potential. I was able to make these reeds work and sound the way that I wanted. It just took a lot of work and was really tiring and was a little unpredictable. And I feel like there's something with the cut, or maybe some slight adjustments to the material, that there is something here. I think these reeds do really, really have potential. Maybe not this iteration. I hope that they're continuing to still iterate, and I would be happy if anybody from D'Addario is watching this. I would be really happy to collaborate and work on these to get these reeds working really well, because I believe in D'Addario to have the technology and the ability to make something that really, really works. And I do believe that synthetic reeds are the future. I think it would be a dream to have a reed that relatively easily plays the way that you want and is relatively consistent from day to day and can last months at a time with that same sort of consistency, I think that could be an absolute game changer for being able to develop the sound that I want and consistently execute and perform. I think the potential's there. I would be happy to share some of my ideas on some adjustments. So if anybody from D'Addario is watching, let me know, and I'd be happy to help with these things. If I can. I'm sure you guys are iterating and doing all kinds of things too. So for the general viewer, I think it's worth trying these reeds. If you want to try a synthetic reed out, again, go at least a quarter strength, if not a half strength, softer than you normally play on. Give it a shot, try it out. Let me know in the comments if anybody's tried them and is really, really liking them and adopting them. I do think that there will be people who really like them. I should put this as a caveat too. I'm a really kind of wimpy player. Like I like to play on a soft setup. I know I'm playing on a strength 4 reed, which doesn't sound soft, but it's a pretty closed mouthpiece, and I use very little embouchure pressure, so having to use so much embouchure pressure was a lot for me. So if you're more of a bitey player, you might actually really, really enjoy these reeds. So I think they're still absolutely worth trying if you're interested in. And I think the future iterations, maybe version 3, maybe they'll come out with a different cut. I think there's real potential there, and I'm looking forward to hopefully trying a future iteration of these reeds sometime soon. And just a couple quick things to wrap up. First, I want to say thank you very much to D'Addario. They weren't a sponsor of this video, so this was all my honest feedback. They did send me these reeds to try though, which I really appreciate. It was a really fun month of experimenting, even though it took some work, but it was really great to get to try these out, so I'm very appreciative of that. The people that I worked with sort of on this collaboration project were delightful to work with, and it was a great experience overall. Second, I want to say thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it and got some information out of it. And last but not least, I want to remind you again about the free training that I'm doing on June 25th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. I've recently sort of finished up the project and the presentation and the slides and everything that is going to be part of that training, and it is going to be really awesome. It's literally some of my very best exercises, some of my best teaching material. I think it will not only give you some solutions to your problems, but hopefully will give you the inspiration and motivation to actually put those solutions into practice and make a difference in your clarinet playing, because that's what I'm here for. My mission is to make clarinet easier for you, make your clarinet journey more enjoyable. So go to quickstartclarinet.com/solutions or check the link in the description to get registered for that training. And even if it's after June 25th, still go to that link. The replay will be up there, and it'll still be a really valuable training for you. But if you're there live, you get to interact with the Q&A and get your unique problems fixed. So definitely show up live if you're able to. I look forward to seeing you all there. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in another video as well.